Speaking of voting in November, by the way, Texas has had an acting Secretary of State. And this man named David Whitley, of course, a Republican, has now resigned after wrongly questioning the citizenship of almost 100,000 people. And even more hilarious is that in his resignation letter, he didn't even mention the botched voter purge that took place in Texas at all. The resignation letter is a blatant whitewashing of what actually happened. The voter purge was actually ended back in April, and there was a settlement that was reached with civil rights groups who sued over it. And what's even more insane about all of this is that under the terms of the agreement that was reached over this voter purge, the next Secretary of State, whoever it ends up being, can keep trying to identify non-citizens and remove them from the voter rolls as long as they put in place some better screening methods so that they get more accurate results. Now, that piece actually makes sense. I mean, if you zoom out, states should be allowed to remove non-citizens from voter rolls. That's perfectly reasonable. The problem is that in practice, it's been made crystal clear that it's a tactic motivated by voter suppression to help Republicans, period. The way it went down is that they claim to have found 95,000 non-citizens registered to vote. They started sending these lists out to the individual county officials to start pulling those people off of the voter rolls. And then very quickly they admitted, and a court agreed, oh yeah, that list was bogus. It wasn't actually made up of non-citizens registered to vote. But of course, by then it was too late to stop the propaganda war effect. Donald Trump was tweeting about it saying, look, rampant voter fraud. Here's an example from Texas. And Trump actually claimed that of those 95,000 non-citizens who were supposedly identified by Texas, 58,000 voted. And of course, everything was a lie. A federal judge ruled that way, saying there wasn't widespread voter fraud. And this Whitley guy's strategy was a complete and total mess. So here are the key takeaways. Number one, this is all part of the untrue story that Trump's been telling us since November of 2016, and Republicans have been telling us for even longer than that millions of people are voting illegally. With Trump specifically, it was 3 to 5 million people voted illegally. Hillary Clinton didn't really win the popular vote. It was because of those 3 to 5 million illegal votes. This is so laughably false at this point that I don't even want to spend that much time on it. The more important thing to understand here is that we can't let the right play games with this to make it seem as though we on the left want people to vote illegally, okay? Because every time we call out the horrible implementation of these strategies that the right does deliberately to disenfranchise likely Democratic voters, or those more likely to be Democratic voters, they will say, hold on, lefties, are you saying you want people voting illegally? You're saying you don't want to remove people who aren't citizens from voter rolls? See, you're part of the problem. So we've got to be prepared to take that head on. And the answer is, the position is obvious. Of course, we want only legal voters voting. And overwhelmingly, that's what happens. Every major study has found that fraudulent votes are almost non-existent. They are statistically insignificant when it comes to the results of actual elections. The reason that we are correct to be suspicious and disgusted with Republicans doing this stuff is not because we want illegal votes. It's because it's not a problem. And the right has admitted behind closed doors, and we even have video of them admitting it in public in some cases, they are doing all of this to hurt the left. Higher turnout helps the left. More voting helps the left. Voting access helps the left. So don't allow them to change the narrative. We're against illegal voters. They barely exist, though. And the real issue is voter suppression. It's not voter fraud. And this has been at this point, I don't know, could we say it's a multi-decade effort to suppress votes in a way that is strategically advantageous to Republicans? Don't let them play the games. Good that this guy Whitley has resigned. Bad that he was able to whitewash the resignation with this bogus resignation letter. And now we've got to see who it is that the Governor Abbott is going to nominate. Probably won't be until after the 2020 election.